Most people think Julius Caesar was just another Roman general who got stabbed by his friends. They're wrong. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, 23 senators surrounded Caesar and plunged their daggers into his body. 23 men. Think about that. It took nearly 24 of Rome's most powerful politicians to stop one man. Why? Because they knew something the history books don't tell you. Julius Caesar wasn't dangerous because he commanded armies. He was dangerous because he understood something about power that made him unstoppable. Something that terrified the most powerful empire on earth. Something that still makes leaders study him 2,000 years later. Everything you think you know about Julius Caesar, the conquests, the affair with Cleopatra, the dramatic assassination, is just the surface. The real story is far more chilling. Today we uncover the truth behind the legend. Let's begin. The year is 75 BC. A 25-year-old Roman nobleman is sailing across the Aegean Sea when pirates intercept his ship. They capture him, demand a ransom of 20 talents of silver. A fortune. Caesar laughs in their faces. He tells them he's worth at least 50 talents. He insists they raise the ransom. For the next 38 days, while his people gather the money, Caesar doesn't cower or beg. He participates in the pirates' games, recites poetry to them, and when they don't applaud enthusiastically enough, he calls them illiterate savages. But here's what the pirates didn't know. Every single day, Caesar smiled and told them exactly what he'd do once he was free. He told them he would hunt them down, capture every last one of them, and crucify them all. The pirates laughed. They thought he was joking. He wasn't. The moment Caesar was released, he raised a fleet, hunted down those pirates, and crucified every single one, just as he promised. But in a bizarre act of mercy, because they'd treated him well during captivity, he had their throats cut before the crucifixion, so they'd die faster. This story reveals everything you need to understand about Julius Caesar. He didn't just make promises, he kept them, no matter the cost. He didn't just seek revenge, he systematized it. And most importantly, he understood that reputation was a weapon more powerful than any sword. But Caesar wasn't born into unlimited power. His family, the Julii, claimed descent from the goddess Venus, but they'd fallen from prominence. At 16, his father died suddenly. Rome was in chaos, ruled by the dictator Sulla, who was purging his enemies. Caesar's family connections put him on the wrong side. Sulla ordered Caesar to divorce his wife Cornelia. Caesar refused. He went into hiding instead, contracted malaria, nearly died, and only survived because influential friends convinced Sulla to spare him. Sulla agreed, but issued this warning. In this Caesar, there are many Mariuses. Marius had been Rome's most dangerous populist leader. Sulla saw that same danger in this teenage boy. He had no idea how right he was, but what happened next would change history forever. Caesar possessed 3 weapons that made him unstoppable: his mind, his words, and his mercy. Let's start with his mind. In 58 BC, Caesar became governor of Gaul, modern-day France. Rome expected him to maintain peace. Instead, Caesar deliberately provoked a war that would last 8 years and result in the death or enslavement of over 1 million people. Why? Because Caesar understood something fundamental. In Rome, military glory translated directly to political power. He needed a war. So he created one. But here's what made him special. Caesar didn't just fight battles, he documented them. While campaigning in Gaul, he wrote Commentari de Bello Gallico, commentaries on the Gallic War. It became an instant bestseller in Rome. Citizens read his accounts of battles the same way we watch Netflix series today. Caesar was the first military commander in history to wage a propaganda campaign as sophisticated as his military campaign. He wrote himself into legend while he was still living it. When the Helvetii tribe attempted to migrate through Roman territory, Caesar responded with tactical brilliance. He built a 19-mile fortification in just 3 weeks. 19 miles. in 3 weeks. Then he caught the Helvetii crossing a river and massacred 3/4 of their population. The survivors begged for peace. Caesar granted it, but forced them to return to their homeland and rebuild. Why? Because he needed a buffer state between Rome and the Germanic tribes. He turned even his mercy into strategy. When Germanic tribes crossed the Rhine, Caesar didn't just defeat them. He built a bridge across the Rhine, 400 feet long, in just 10 days. His engineers accomplished in 10 days what seemed impossible. Caesar marched his legions across, stayed for 18 days to make his point, then marched back and destroyed the bridge. The message was clear. Rome could strike anywhere, any time. The Rhine wasn't a barrier, it was a choice. But this was just the beginning of his brilliance. In 55 BC, Caesar did something no Roman had ever done. He invaded Britain. The first expedition was reconnaissance. The second, in 54 BC, was conquest. Caesar brought 5 legions and 2,000 cavalry across one of the most dangerous bodies of water in Europe. The Britons had never seen organized military force on this scale. They sued for peace. But here's what most people don't know. Caesar's British campaigns were military failures. He conquered nothing permanent. He extracted tribute that was never fully paid. By traditional standards, the expeditions achieved almost nothing. Yet in Rome, Caesar was hailed as a hero. Why? Because he'd crossed the ocean, the edge of the known world. He'd literally expanded Rome's imagination of what was possible. Caesar understood that perception mattered more than reality. Now let's talk about his greatest tactical achievement. Alesia. In 52 BC, Caesar faced his most dangerous enemy, Vercingetorix, who'd united Gallic tribes in rebellion. Vercingetorix had 80,000 warriors. He retreated to the hilltop fortress of Alesia and waited for reinforcements. Caesar's response was insane. He built 2 walls. The first, 11 miles long, surrounded Alesia to trap Vercingetorix inside. The second, 14 miles long, faced outward to protect against the relief force. Caesar built 25 miles of fortifications, complete with trenches, stakes, and traps. He created a double siege, attacking the fortress while defending against an army at his back. When the Gallic relief force arrived, 250,000 warriors, Caesar's 60,000 legionaries found themselves trapped between 2 enemy armies. They should have been annihilated. Instead, Caesar won. He personally led cavalry charges at critical moments. His legions held both walls. When it was over, Vercingetorix surrendered. The Gallic relief force disbanded. Caesar had broken the back of Gallic resistance through engineering and willpower. 1 million Gauls were dead, another million enslaved. Caesar had conquered a territory the size of modern France. He'd become the wealthiest man in Rome from the spoils. And back in Rome, his enemies realized they'd created a monster. But his true legacy extends far beyond military conquest. Here's the myth. Julius Caesar was a power-hungry tyrant who destroyed the Roman Republic. Here's the truth. Caesar was a symptom, not the cause. By 50 BC, the Roman Republic was already dying. The Senate was hopelessly corrupt. Wealth concentrated in fewer and fewer hands. The gap between rich and poor had become a chasm. Roman citizens were losing their land to wealthy aristocrats who used slave labor from conquests. The traditional Roman path to power, military command followed by political office, had become a death sentence. Successful generals returned to find themselves prosecuted by political enemies on trumped-up charges. The only way to stay safe was to stay in power. Caesar's enemies, led by Cato and backed by Pompey, refused to let him return to Rome as a private citizen. They knew that the moment Caesar lost his legal immunity as governor, they'd destroy him with lawsuits. So in January 49 BC, Caesar made his choice. He took the 13th Legion and crossed the Rubicon River, the boundary between Gaul and Italy. Roman law forbade generals from bringing armies into Italy. Crossing meant civil war. According to the historian Suetonius, Caesar uttered the famous phrase, "Alea iacta est," the die is cast. But here's what modern historians have discovered. Caesar didn't want civil war. He spent months negotiating. He offered to disband his armies if Pompey did the same. He proposed compromise after compromise. The Senate refused every offer. They wanted Caesar powerless or dead. Caesar gave them neither. Modern scholars have discovered the civil war lasted 4 years. Caesar defeated Pompey at Pharsalus in 48 BC. Pompey fled to Egypt, where Ptolemy XIII had him murdered. When Caesar arrived in Egypt, they presented him with Pompey's head. Caesar wept. That moment reveals everything about Caesar's greatest weapon, clemency. Throughout the civil war, Caesar pardoned his enemies. Brutus, who'd fought for Pompey, pardoned and promoted. Cassius, pardoned. Even Cicero, who'd opposed him, allowed to live in peace. This wasn't mercy, it was strategy. Every pardon created a debt. Every act of clemency made resistance seem unreasonable. Caesar was systematically transforming the nature of Roman power. In 46 BC, Caesar became dictator. But unlike previous dictators, Caesar used his power to transform Rome. He reformed the calendar, creating the Julian calendar, the basis for our modern calendar. July is named for him. He expanded citizenship to provinces. He reformed debt laws to help the poor. He settled veterans in colonies throughout the empire. He planned massive public works, new libraries, a canal through the Corinthian Isthmus, temples, theaters. He was creating a new kind of Rome, one ruled by merit rather than aristocratic birth, one where a man from the provinces could become a citizen, where ability mattered more than ancestry. The Senate hated every moment of it. Without Caesar, we wouldn't have the modern calendar. We wouldn't have the concept of universal citizenship. We wouldn't have the template for every military commander who studied his tactics for the next 2,000 years. Napoleon studied Caesar. Patton studied Caesar. Modern military academies still teach his campaigns. But the most important thing to understand about Caesar is Caesar's real danger wasn't his armies. It was his vision. He saw that Rome's republican system was broken beyond repair. He understood that the future belonged to empire, not republic. He was building something new, a Rome where power came from the people, channeled through one supreme leader. The senators who killed him thought they were saving the republic. They were already too late. On March 15th, 44 BC, 60 senators participated in the conspiracy. 23 actually struck him. Caesar fought back until he saw Brutus, his protégé, possibly even his illegitimate son, among the attackers. According to legend, Caesar said, "Et tu, Brute?" Even you, Brutus. Then he pulled his toga over his head and accepted his death. But here's what the conspirators didn't understand. Killing Caesar changed nothing. His great-nephew Octavian avenged him, defeated his killers, and became Rome's first emperor, Augustus. The Roman Republic was dead. The Roman Empire had begun. Caesar had won even in death. But was he a hero or a villain? The answer is both, and neither. Caesar conquered Gaul and caused over 1 million deaths to fuel his political ambitions. He crossed the Rubicon and plunged Rome into civil war. He accumulated so much power that he made himself a target. But he also reformed a broken system. He expanded citizenship and opportunity. He pardoned his enemies when tradition demanded their execution. He tried to build something new from Rome's corruption. The most important thing to understand about Julius Caesar is this. He was dangerous not because he was cruel, but because he was capable. Not because he was evil, but because he was effective. Not because he destroyed Rome, but because he transformed it. The senators didn't kill Caesar because he was a tyrant. They killed him because he proved that one brilliant, ruthless, charismatic man could bend the most powerful empire on earth to his will. And that terrified them more than any barbarian army ever could. Julius Caesar was kidnapped by pirates and told them he'd crucify them. Then he did. He built a bridge across the Rhine in 10 days just to prove he could. He surrounded himself with enemies at Alesia and defeated them all. He crossed the Rubicon knowing there was no turning back. He pardoned his enemies until they killed him, and even in death, his vision of Rome conquered the republic that murdered him. Caesar was dangerous because he understood what most people never learn. Power isn't about violence, it's about perception. It's about making others believe that resistance is futile and loyalty is rewarded. It's about building a legend while you're still alive to shape it. 2,000 years later, we still measure time by his calendar. We still study his battles. We still debate whether he saved Rome or destroyed it. The truth? He did both. History remembers the bold, the brilliant, the unforgettable. And Julius Caesar was all three.